The Browning High Power from FN, made in Belgium. It's been around a long time, almost a century-year-old now. Very reminiscent of a 1911 with some of the quirks that come along with the 1911 as well. And some very unique things that I've noticed with high powers now that I've been shooting for a couple of years now. Did a full review on this one right here. This one's from 1986. Picked it up in a batch from Israel, so a bunch of trade-ins from police, IDF, not really sure, but kind of seen better days, beaten up, but well worn in and shoots really well. But of course, FNs have always been known to fetch a hefty price tag, so not everyone really has the money or the need to get something like this. Maybe they do want a high power. So welcome to the chat. The Centurion 14, imported from Century Arms, made in Turkey. Now, this is a clone. Of course, there's a lot of clones being made now, so I'm assuming that this is probably made in one of the factories making a bunch of other high power clones, because high powers, kind of like 1911s, you need to have a very specific set of factory tooling and things like that to kind of get the production of these up and running. And this takes after a more modern look of a FN Browning high power. A lot of the high powers are still being made now. I think they just launched new ones from FN. And of course, like I said, the clone market's pretty hopping right now. And this one, Centurion 14, has been fantastic. Feels really good. I'm gonna show you a close-up video in a second comparing these two right here. And it's a true to form clone in that it has some more modern things on it that we're looking for in more of a modern handgun that you would have more fun shooting at the range with, but it still has that look and feel of a high power, same design in a way, right? So it's a lot of fun. It has some quirks to it. For example, it's very tight tolerances, and you'll see when we take it down here on the table in a second. Super tight tolerances, very well made, no tooling marks or anything weird like that. And with that comes kind of a break-in period, which it's an older firearm design, so I can't really knock it for having a break-in period. I mean, nowadays, new firearms, you don't really want to see that, but this is an all steel design as well. So being all steel, you're gonna have a break-in period, I think. With this particular handgun, it took like 50, maybe 100 rounds, and I've got several hundred rounds through it already now to really kind of get a feel for it, to kind of get it worn in a little bit. It was definitely nice and tight there, because you can kind of compare it to the other one here. So that's that one. FN is kind of, it's all rattly now, right? So the FN one I've had is much older, right? So it's an older design, which makes it so it's definitely broken in, right? So with this one being a little less broken in, it took a little bit to kind of get it going, and honestly, it's run perfectly fine ever since the first couple bits. Plus, I mentioned this in my full review on the FN Browning High Power already, but they have this slide lock, slide release lever that is involved with the takedown of this design, and design for all high powers really. And back then, I think they really wanted you to shoot one-handed, like the old 1911, right? Maybe cupped, something like that, right? But if you want to get a high grip on this, and even though it has that beaver tail, you want to get the high grip on there, push your hand all the way up. You got to watch where you put that thumb, and I really want to rest on there. But if you rest on there, you're going to cause malfunctions. Talked about this in my other video, malfunctions. You're going to make it so the slide locks back. Maybe it won't rack the next round. So you have to go and kind of put your hand or your thumb below that line there. And it's just something you have to get used to. So if you've never had one of these, notice that. Also, this right here has a manual safety on here, and what that allows you to do is it locks the slide back, so you cannot go and move it. So you're essentially a cocked and locked scenario, kind of like in 1911. So you rack around in, because it is single action, you have to get that hammer back in order to fire the handgun. So once you get the hammer back, you can now lock the safety, and now you essentially have it so that you can go and be on safe, and then we're ready to fire. You just simply flip it down and go for it. Now this also has, just like true to high power form, magazine disconnect. So with that, you have to have the magazine in order to fire this particular handgun. Very nice trigger for what it is, right? I don't think it's as good as maybe a 1911, but that's something I think that's a hit on all high powers really, and just that hinged kind of design for that trigger right there. But that magazine disconnect definitely comes directly from the old high powers there. HP 15 made in Italy. I'm assuming Mech-Gar, but it comes with one mag out of the box. And the biggest thing, of course, about a clone would be the price point, right? So FN's always going for that premium price tag. This one right here is gonna fetch a lot lower, being a clone. So if you've never had a high power, you want a high power, you wanna try it out, a clone might be the way to go, just to get your hands on it, get a feel for it. And it has such a unique recoil impulse as well. It just feels different than many handguns, especially more modern handguns. And it's got some weight to it as well, being that all steel design. Let's take this over to the table here, right behind me, and I'm gonna show you comparing this to the FN Browning high power. And then we'll talk about the field stripping and kind of how to take this apart, because it's a little bit different than your normal striker fired. You have the FN, and then you have the Centurion 14. So you can kind of see, very similar. It has the heart of the Browning high power with the Centurion 14, but a little bit more of a modern take on the platform. Skeletonized hammer, upgraded sights. But overall, very similar, obviously being a nice kind of true to form clone in a way. Flip them over here, kind of see. Shorten safety. No line up top there. There's those sights, a little bigger, a little beefier, adjustable. Kind of what you're looking for in a newer handgun in 2024. 15 round magazine, made in Italy, HP 15. Very tight tolerances. It just feels really, really good. It's very smooth, no grit or anything like that you might worry about from maybe a Turkish clone. Takedown of this particular firearm for cleaning and maintenance is a field strip for cleaning and maintenance. So make a note of that, YouTube, if you're watching. It does have a magazine disconnect. So once you remove that magazine, even after you check the chamber, check again, that hammer will not follow without the magazine inserted. That's a lot of FN Browning high power type designs. So what you're gonna do now is lock this back like so, just like that. Now I like to relieve a little bit of pressure. Before I do that, I'll show you that right there is what you're gonna be pushing. Right there, you're gonna push it out, but you wanna relieve a little bit of that pressure and keep it up there, because you're gonna pull this whole thing out and then simply let it go. A little more difficult than your standard handgun, but this is a very old design. Right there, you see the spring right there, and this barrel, nice and grimy, and that's it. That is the takedown. Of course, can't use it like this. So once you clean it, once you check what's going on with it, whatever you need to do for maintenance, drop that barrel back in. You can kind of see the spring right here. Now, this will go both ways, but it only works one way. So, kind of see, if you do it this way, you can see the hole, sure, that's fine. But look how bent that spring is, right? So you want to kind of use some common sense here, spin this around. I like to think that square is on top, is kind of what I think. So, slide it into this little spot there, and now it's a little more straight. So you kind of have a little bit of a lip there, is what it should look like. Nice and flat, right? Now, I do need to do a cleaning video on this gun because this is absolutely filthy. So again, bring it all the way back, hold it nice and tight. You want to pop your slide stop all the way in, like so, and then test it. Make sure she locks back. You're back in business. Very well made for a clone. Honestly, I think a lot of turkey stuff, depending on who you get them from, can be kind of hit and miss, really. But wherever they're getting them from here for this one, or whatever they're doing to kind of import these, they're doing a good job over at Century Arms because it just feels really good. I mean, if you potentially, you could even say that this doesn't even feel like a clone. It's something where you pick this up and you're like, oh wow, this might even be the real deal, right? Potentially, right? So with that, guys, I think I'm gonna wrap up this video. Such a cool clone. I think there's a bunch of companies making these now out of the high power kind of design, really. And with that, I think this is one of the better ones just because not only the price point, but how well it's made. And I'd actually consider, if you guys like this video, let me know in the comments because there's a bunch of clone companies making these. And if so, I'm gonna go and test them out. Maybe I'll get a couple more in, test those out, kind of compare and contrast because they seem to be coming back up on the market quite a bit. It's just something different, right? And we're all craving something different in 2024. So thanks so much for watching, guys. Any questions, hit them down in the comments below. I'll be happy to answer them. As always, make sure you train hard. You never know what's coming. Take care of the ones you love. Those are the ones that matter. And we'll see you in the next review.